pray that they'll be useful to us. Pray that you also help us take this information and put it into action and understanding, and also give us opportunities to share the gospel with those around us. Bless us today in Jesus' name, amen. Okay, today they're all coming for you, and you'll get this in just a moment. So in a moment, I'm going to bring our guest up here. I'm going to do just a quick little update. We both spoke, Patrick Wood and I both spoke at a conference over around Dayton yesterday, and we went over to stay at the hotel Friday night. It was a wonderful experience. We get to the hotel, and I had been over there to Brookville, and I had actually done a interview with J.B. Hickson, who will be here on October 8th. I went over there to a conference that Mike Spalding was putting on a few months ago. And so I stopped at the hotel because I had an appointment with J.B. Hickson to do an update. I did it in the hotel, and I knew where the hotel was, but we drove in, I couldn't find the hotel. It was dark. Well, there are hundreds, over 100,000 customers in Dayton without power because of the storm. The hotel had no power. They said, well, we'll give you a room, but we can't guarantee you that that it will have power at all, or that it will have power and everything. So a couple of the speakers, they said they had to take a lamp into the bathroom because there was no lights in the bathroom. They had to, there was no hot water in the morning when they wanted to shower. Flights for speakers were delayed. They didn't get there till like 1 a.m. So Patrick and Charmaine and Pam and I went over to another hotel a ways, and they said they were just about all booked up because there are hotels all over Dayton that didn't have power. So, and we're able to find one that actually had full power and internet and everything, but it was very, Pastor Mike Spalding from Calvary Chapel, Lima, who was running the conference over there, that's kind of a big headache that you don't plan on, like no power at the hotel that you're doing. So everything worked out. So I tell you, this is what my mind kind of looks like as I'm getting ready to talk anymore. I've decided that I'm going to implement this. It's called the Wheel of Prophecy, and we'll just give it a big spin and pick a topic sometimes when we do things. So that's a work in process. I'm trying to Photoshop it in. This is the things we talk about: acceleration, convergence, logistics, understanding. If you've heard me before, we talk about that. Also talk about the fact that Daniel says that at the time of the end, knowledge will increase. And I think this is knowledge of the prophetic scriptures. And as we get further along down the road in this end time scenario, people are going to be able to look at the scripture and say, oh, so that's what that was talking about. And I think a lot of scriptures that we've not thought about are going to come alive, literally alive. And we want it to be sort of like Jesus when he was here with his disciples. He said, you guys should consider yourself blessed that you're living at a time when the prophets all wanted to live. You're living when the prophecies are being fulfilled. And I think if he was here today, he would say, you should consider yourself blessed. As difficult as the world seems, you should consider yourself blessed that you live at this time. Now, this week was the UN General Assembly meeting. It started off last week. In fact, it was a week ago today that they actually adopted the Pact for the Future. And I thought that this clip that happened at the podium with the Haitian ambassador to the UN as he was getting ready to speak was it's symbolic and instructive on so many levels. And this is what happened at the podium at the UN General Assembly the other day.
Respect for its dignity.
Respect for dignity. Yeah, I'm looping that, so. But it's sort of like, isn't that sort of emblematic of the socialist mindset? Oh, there's a glass there. I want the whole picture. And there were a lot of other comments that made referencing some of the things going over in Springfield, and I'll refrain from doing that. So they did this Summit of the Future last week. So Patrick, why don't you come up here and we're going to talk a little bit. Patrick Wood from Technocracy News, an author, speaker. He was over at the conference yesterday. You can go to Go there for conference.com if you want to get the live stream. I think it's like $10, and you can watch the talks. Me, Patrick Mondo Gonzalez, Barry Stagner, Jim Swigert, Calvary Chapel pastor from down in Cincinnati area. Oh, and Mike Spalding. So those talks are available. So here was a tweet the other day. So we're gonna talk for about 20 minutes or so about some topics. Patrick spoke first hour. Then I'm going to do some things on Israel just because I've got too much. If I don't do it now, you're going to be sitting here for 5 hours in a few days. So here's a tweet from Ivanka Trump. And Pat, you talk about the technocrats. And first of all, would you put Ivanka Trump in the technocrat mold?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
The daughter of our former president. So she talks about Leopold Aschenbrenner's situational awareness predicts we are on course for artificial general intelligence by 2027. She just tweeted this the other day. And if you remember, we talked about this, Patrick and I, and Britt Gillette and Scott Townsend and Tom Hughes talked about this paper that he put out. You can download it. It's called Situational Awareness. And if you really want to understand where some people think artificial intelligence is going and what it's going to do, this is a pretty good paper. This is a guy who worked in the industry. By the way, Patrick, Britt Gillette, Tom Hughes, Scott Townsend, and I will be doing a roundtable on October 15th at 7 p.m. It'll be on the Fellowship Bible Chapel streaming platforms. We might add Twitter this time, try to get Telegram going this time again. But, so this is an important, well, what do you think is the importance of this situational awareness document in terms of what you talk about?
Yeah. I'll add, in hindsight, I have a career behind me in information technology. So I've studied programming algorithms for many, many years. And this whole business with artificial intelligence, I have some strong opinions on it. It's all bad, but...
Well, then share them. We love bad news around here.
Yeah, exactly. This business, this is their view of where this is going at this point. It's not my view. I think we're going to have significant problems along the way. But they view this business of artificial intelligence, that's an oxymoron. There's no such thing as artificial intelligence. Intelligence is a human quality that's only given for humans, not any computer algorithm altogether. So they're starting off on the wrong foot, talking about intelligence that's artificial. Nevertheless, what they have come up with is something that will mimic, in other words, play act at being intelligent, to make decisions for people based on that quote-unquote intelligence that have no bearing on reality at all. And this is part of this process of destruction of the world, because the most important thing for us and people in general is to be in touch with reality, what reality is, and not just some make-up stuff, but reality is something God has engineered for us to understand our world. And if people get disconnected from reality, psychologists talk about psychosis. If you're in a psychotic state, you have broken with reality. This is what artificial intelligence is going to do for billions of people on the planet, to separate them from reality, substituting something that is not reality in the end.
So I often say that they call it artificial intelligence and not real wisdom. There's not a lot of wisdom with it, and there's some problems with it. Now, one of the biggest technocrats is a guy named Sam Altman. He's with OpenAI. He's been tied in, well, Elon Musk and Sam Altman were, I think, the co-founders of OpenAI. Yes. And Elon supposedly got concerned about they were turning into a for-profit company, so he left. He bought X, and well, just give me your opinion about Elon, because there's a lot of people on the right that think Elon's just great. He's for freedom of speech. He's our friend and all this stuff. Now, Joe Allen, who you know, Joe Bot XYZ, who wrote a book on, what was his book called? Yours was
Dark Eon.
Dark Eon. And you can find him on the War Room platform a lot. Patrick's been on there as well. And Joe Allen is not a pro-Elon Musk guy by any stretch of the imagination. He thinks that a lot of people that are on that platform, by the way, are being duped by Elon. So here's Sam Altman writing this week at his blog, The Intelligence Age, and look at what he says here. Talking about artificial intelligence, how great it's going to be. And he comes down there, he says, this may turn out to be the most consequential fact about all of history so far. So he has sort of a, I think we would, in psychology terms, we would call this maybe megalomania.
That's right.
And and a lot of these guys, they tie it into religion. It's a religious system that they're developing. There's the God of AI. I mean, Yuval Harari has a new book out called Nexus, and he's running around doing interviews again. He's going to make millions and millions of dollars on that book. But so here's where Sam Altman thinks that this is going. It is possible that we will have super intelligence in a few thousand days. So he's given himself some wiggle room. It may take longer, but I'm confident we'll get there. So what's just your impression of what he has to say there?
I think he's crazy. He has an ego that's only superseded by his greed. And it's hard to express my feelings about this. Here's a guy who arguably is a brilliant guy. He's a venture capitalist. He's not a programmer type, but he's a brilliant venture capital guy. When he got started with Elon to make a nonprofit organization that might create a product that would be helpful for humanity, he stepped away from that vision and decided to go for profit rather than just being, pure interest sort of thing. We see in the meantime that he's run off in the last year and a half, he's run off all of his safety team, the people who were charged with making the AI safe as it went forward. All these people, geniuses, all of them, that left the company. And just this last week, his chief technology officer has left as well. You have to ask what's going on here. He's not obviously concerned about safety anymore. He's concerned about beating everybody else to the punch with this artificial general intelligence, and then the stepping stone there is to get eventually to super intelligence, artificial super intelligence, ASI. This guy, he's unplugged himself from humanity, in my opinion, and he's going for the gold at this point. He's obsessed with this goal of reaching AGI. And part of the reason is we saw that that statement from Klaus Schwab. No, excuse me. That was Klaus Schwab at that conference in Dubai, I think it was, when he talks about whoever gets this AGI first will be the one who masters the world. And
I think Yuval Harari said that at one of the other conferences.
Exactly.
The future super wealthy will control the data.
Yes. So here you have Sam Altman is going for the gold now. He sees that it's in his reach. He's getting rid of all the safety mechanisms at this point telling all his programmers, go for it. We're going to be the first ones to get it, and we will be the masters of the universe. We don't want that from somebody like Sam Altman. I got a picture of him, by the way. This guy, he's one of these people that attends Burning Man, for instance. He's a burner. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Burning Man. This is a pagan festival.
By the way, we have friends like Carl Teckler. We have friends who go to Burning Man and use evangelism, and they call their place, and they've been very effective
Yes.
in leading people to the Lord in the midst of all this paganism. They call their camp. You go out and camp, and they build a city and all this. They call themselves Carl and Audrey and Brian, friends of ours. And Mark Sutherland, who we may be talking with tomorrow, I need to tell you about that, from the UK. They call it the Camp of the Unknown God. And it's a play. It's not a play. It's a direct reference to Acts chapter 17, where Paul said, "This is I see you worship the unknown God." So Sam is into this, so I interrupted you. So
He is,
carry on.
and as most of these technocrats are into the Burning Man. It's a hedonistic, unplugged sexually, anything goes, drugs, you name it, goes on there. They have law enforcement there, but they don't interfere with the celebration. And it ends with the burning of this effigy of a man. This huge, big, like a
like 80, 100 feet
like
tall.
100, really tall. And that's how the thing ends in the end, burning down the image of man. Talk about destruction of humanity and the creation. This is it. Burning man down. What are they thinking? Well, Sam Altman is a burner. Eric Schmidt, who used to be the CEO of Google, he was selected to be the CEO of Google by Sergey Brin and his partner at that time because Eric Schmidt had Burning Man on his resume. That was a singular thing that got him started with Google in the first place. Now he's left Google. He was inducted into the Trilateral Commission recently, and now
he's a book on artificial intelligence with
Henry Kissinger. Oh my gosh, he's the heir. He's the heir apparent
Triggered
now.
word for you, isn't it?
No, yeah, really, it's like old home wheat here. So you have this whole nest of people from Silicon Valley who are just obsessed with this concept of Burning Man. And it just shows you these people are unplugged. When they go there, they're one way. They put their suit or sneakers on, whatever, over here, and they look normal. But they're not normal. None of them are normal. They're just crazy. Sam Altman is one of these people.
Ray Kurzweil would be another guy.
Yes.
There's a famous cover of Time magazine from probably 13 years ago now. 2045, the year man becomes immortal. This is what they think that they're doing. So there's this huge, like, Tower of Babel religious component to this thing. We will be as gods.
Yep.
So this is what Altman says. Now this week at the UN last Sunday, they enacted the Pact for the Future. And I'm sure it was at the UN, so they're all about helping us out, and right?
Yeah.
And this is the Sustainable Development Goals that lie at the heart of it. What do you think about this Pact of the Future? And
the significant thing was there was three different things, the elements of it. One was the Pact for the Future itself, but kind of an addendum, they called it. I think it was really a separate agreement, but it was the Digital Pact for the Future, talking about the digitalization of everything on the planet. And, somehow they've gotten this idea that if everything is digitized, And that what I mean by that is everything can be reduced to bits of data, down to your DNA being sequenced, and your iris and your facial recognition and everything else, all your transactions, purchases, digital currencies, etc. If everything in the universe can be digitized with a digital ID applied to every person on the planet, why, that will achieve the sustainable development goals and all the things, like resource allocation, things like defeating global warming, for instance. Again, these people are really nuts, but this is a heart, and the way I look at it, that's going to be the heart of this whole thing going forward, is the digitization of everything.
You talked about global warming, and I don't have it in my slide deck, but there was an article this week at the Washington Post. I don't know if you saw this, and it was a chart, this long graph, and it was 400 years of the temperature, like average temperature of 400 million years of the average temperature of the Earth. And what did they say? Global warming, global warming, global warming. By the way, pray for our friends down in North Carolina. Randall Smith lives near a town that's Chimney Rock that's completely gone. His son and daughter-in-law and kids were just found this morning. There's no communications down there. There's signs up down in western North Carolina is closed. The roads are out. Rivers are overflowed. Dams have failed. Towns are gone. And some are saying it's going to take years to clean up the mess. A cell tower, it's unbelievable. And so it's going to come this week. You're going to see all the stories that this is the result of global warming. Yep. The interesting thing about this chart is when you go, now I don't believe in the hundreds of millions of years thing, but let's just give them that part of their data set. The temperature is like up here. And it goes along through history, and it kind of has ups and downs, but it's a continual down to the present age, the last few centuries, which are like the coldest period in all of these. And what they're concerned about is it was down, and now there's been this little tiny spike up that you have to blow the thing up to even see. But this drives everything now.
Yes, it does. It really doesn't have anything to do with the reality of global warming at all. This was all made up, by the way, in somewhere around 1968 as being the determining con. This is the heartbeat of the con to convince people to do what they wanted to do, namely give up all your resources and your choices in life, etc. And this thing was phony from the beginning. It's taken on a life of its own, however, and these people think it's real, and everything at the United Nations now is all focused on defeating climate change. And this is what these sustainable development goals are all about in the first place. They're crazy. Every one of them can be picked apart to see exactly what they're talking about. But it will, if they were successful to get everything in place, you would see virtually the destruction of the planet. They say they're saving the planet. They're actually saying we're going to save the planet. They're just doing the exact opposite. Everything they're doing is destroying the planet along the way.
And we could, in the round table in a couple weeks, we'll talk about energy usage and development of quantum computing and everything that's like we're right on the verge of, and the need for power. Like we were talking yesterday about they're restarting 3 Mile Island nuclear plant over near Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Now, it was a big hype thing about the problems that they had back in the late 1979, I think it was, right when the China Syndrome movie happened to come out, which included a line that said, if there's a nuclear meltdown, reactor meltdown, it will render uninhabitable a area the size of Pennsylvania. And then Pennsylvania has a nuclear plant accident, but it was all overhyped. But they need power. And by the way, I'm all for nuclear power, by the way. I think it's probably the best thing going, but they're really pushing it. As you know, Bill Gates has bought 50,000 acres of farmland out here to the west of Columbus, and he's going to turn almost 5,000 acres of it into a solar farm. Because you don't need food, folks. We need solar power more than you need food, I think is that a fair statement?
Exactly, yeah.
First hour, you mentioned King Charles and his website, if you want to follow it. And now I'm forgetting that it's called Sustainable Markets Initiative. And he's all about the Sustainable Development Goals. Remember that portrait that they released of him? Looks like he's standing in a field of blood.
Yeah.
I don't think the symbolism was I don't think that symbolism was unintentional. Do you?
Yeah. No.
So, and then he has this. What's that thing that he calls the organization that he started? He came out with a big publication. It was like, we're going to protect the earth. I can't remember the name of it now. And then came out a little bit later with, it's not just the earth, it's the universe that I'm in. So he has sort of what we would call, megalomania seems to be endemic in this part of the community.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about our current election and technocracy. So we're going to play a clip. This is Kamala Harris. Comrade Harris interviewed a little while ago, a few months back, and this is what she had to say, because in the Pact for the Future, there was the global health part, there was the global digital compact, and a big concern about misinformation, disinformation, that type of thing in the context of a country that has a constitution that says free speech. And by the way, you've done a lot of work on free speech, right?
Yeah.
And then you did a conference last weekend with Catherine Austin Fitts and some other people called Omnivore, and that can be found online as well. So here's Kamala Harris just not too long ago interviewed, and this is what she said, because X is shut down by Brazil, and Elon Musk, I'm going to fight him, and what did he do? He caved. The guy at Telegram, what did he do? He caved to France. And here's what Kamala Harris said.
You can't say that you have one.
Nah, that's not fair. I listened to it. You have to listen to it too.
He has lost his privileges, and it should be taken down. And the bottom line is that you can't say that you have one rule for Facebook and you have a different rule for Twitter. The same rule has to apply, which is that there has to be a responsibility that is placed on these social media sites to understand their power. They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation, and that has to stop.
But I can, because I'm a technocrat, right? So would you consider her a technocrat?
She's a useful idiot.
Okay.
She's not a technocrat herself.
Okay. I'm shocked that you would say that about Comrade Harris. So, but talk a little bit about technocracy and how it plays into the current election and your concerns.
Exactly. You have to remember that from the 30s onward, technocrats hated politicians. They would have got rid of all of them back in the 1930s if they could. They didn't, but they would if they could. We have this antipathy today between technocracy and politicians. You'll see somebody like Harris will parrot their line. She's not able to be a technocrat herself. I don't think she has a brain or head. But normally you see people like Susan Rice, for instance, was instrumental in driving policy in the Biden administration. Oh boy, here we come with...
this is the ultimate technocrat. I said, Pat, this picture a long time ago. This is sort of the... And this, do you agree that this captures the essence of the man almost better than any drawing or caricature ever done by anybody in human history of another human being?
Just a guy. That's Zbigniew Brzezinski. Exactly. So we see this antagonism. For instance, when Elon Musk tells France to stick it, that's not what you do normally for a technocrat to politician. But this is the way they are. They don't like the politicians at all because they get in their way. They want to rain on their parade. And so Sam Altman, for instance, he doesn't want any part of regulation from a federal basis. No, you just trust us. We'll police ourselves. We'll make sure everything's safe. Trust us.
And then fires his safety team.
Exactly as he runs off his safety team. These people, in the end, if they're successful, they will emerge as the unelected and unaccountable technocrats who rule society from the background. Maybe they'll leave some politicians in place to make us think that there's somebody that we can appeal to. But basically, it's a scientific dictatorship they're setting up right now. It'll be run by AI, it'll be run by algorithm, where you won't have any choices of your own. The algorithm will make choices for you. This is antithetical to political systems where we discuss things, right? Where we hammer out policies and figure out what's good for society. Well, there's a lot of give and take, I understand, of politics, but the whole idea of political systems in the first place, there's necessary to make a society function. This has always been the history of the world. There's a political system, religious system, economic system. They have to be in sync with each other to make that country function as a country. These people are just cutting out the whole political bit. No, you trust us. We have the answers. We have the science. We have the algorithms. We'll tell you what's right. You just have to accept it. No, thank you.
So you talked first hour about the end time religious beast system, Babylon, and the commercial Babylon, Revelation 17 and 18, and sort of give us a thumbnail of how you think this all fits together, the rise of the religious and the commercial, and do you think this plays a part of it?
It does. We know these people, and from the get-go, from the 30s onwards, they've always said they're not religious. They don't represent religion at all. That's a bogus argument. Nobody is not religious. Everybody's religious somehow. You worship somebody or something. You won't worship God, but something will come along to get your interest. These people are worshiping science. Science has become their God. The engineering part of it, that's become their God, and science is put up on a pedestal where they're the ones who can interpret it, what science says, and bring it down to the masses down here who don't have the PhDs, et cetera, to tell us what you can do with the whole thing. This is basically what you have with the Incas, for instance, in the ancient civilization in South America, in Mexico. You have basically they go up, the priests go up a mountain, they throw a couple of virgins in the volcano, and they come back down and tell people what they need to do so the volcano won't rain fire on them and kill them all. This is basically the same thing. They're going to the mountain for science now. They're saying, oh, we're the only ones that can interpret what's going on here. We'll tell you what it says, then you do what we say. It's the oldest con in the history of the world, really.
And then you see this in the current election, you see this person who is I guess we would call her a faux technocrat, might be that's the best compliment we can get.
That's good.
But then we see this is the New York Post yesterday about the immigration that I thought she was controlling or running, and it's running out of control.
Yes, it is, yeah. I have to say, I've written a lot about this business, the immigration in America and in Europe as well. Let me just say about that, I can't go into the whole thing, but this whole business of immigration started mostly in Europe and then it spread to the United States. No other place in the world has problem with illegal immigrants. Nobody wants to break into China, Russia, South America and that direction. They're all coming here. They're coming from Europe as well.
By the way, I saw some technocrats, though, say, because China's in massive demographic decline. And so there was, I'm sure this person was a technocrat, New York Times or Economist or someplace, and they said, the solution for China's population decline is what? Immigration. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it could be.
Well, that's what they're trying to do there, too.
Exactly. The whole business of this immigration started with a person who was a member of the Trilateral Commission in Europe, the head of the Trilateral Commission in Europe, by the way, by the name of Peter Sutherland. This is the guy who went around to every country in Europe to make them set quotas of the people who they would accept into their country before there was anybody coming in the first place. Then, when it's all started, they start to push the people northward. Then Sutherland went around to all the countries who were complaining that you're killing us here with this stuff. He convinced them, no, you signed an agreement with the United Nations. You cannot refuse to honor, to not go. You can't go back on your word. To not, you have to accept your quota plus what else we give you now. This was the rat. This was trilateral policy from the get-go to deinstruct. No, it's not the word. Deconstruct. Thank you. Europe, by making it a multicultural melting pot of goo, so that they can basically wipe out the concept of the nation state there and make everybody one big happy family. Sutherland actually said the way to get to a sustainable economy is through immigration. This was a singular policy of Trilateral Commission members going back decades. I've been harping on this. We think nobody will listen, of course, but it's clear they're the rats that did it. And we're suffering this now. We see this stuff right now. This was all ignored by all these people in Biden administration, but not him only. It goes back a long ways.
There's a chart in the New York Times yesterday, how fentanyl drove a tsunami of death in America, coming in through immigration, uncontrolled, deliberately by technocrats and others.
Yes, exactly. And when I say the Trilateral Commission, these people proposed technocracy in 1973. They didn't tell anybody that way at that point. But that was the plan. Looking backwards, we can see this is exactly the thing that they did. When Brzezinski was brought in as co-founder, he brought this whole body of knowledge about technocracy. We see this every step of the way, that the nation state is being destroyed, culture, society is being destroyed, and there's no, we just cry. I mean, look, you can't stop it at this point. Everybody wonders why all these immigrants coming here, including terrorists, murderers, rapists, you name it. Doesn't anybody have a brain in Washington D.C. that could stop it? Well, even Trump couldn't stop it, and he's still just keeps on.
Right. Yeah. It's totally out of control. So we're going to stop this part. We're going to continue with the live stream. I'm going to talk about the Middle East. But first of all, where can people follow you, find more information, and that type of thing?
Technocracy.news basically is it. And from there you can branch out. I have lots of videos, interviews, and stuff on the internet, Rumble, YouTube, you name it. So if you want information, all my books are there on my website. Also, you can get them on bookstores, electronic bookstores like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc. And read up. It pays you to really get a handle of what's going on. You just don't get it from one session, but it pays to study a little bit to figure out what's going on.
So, and you can follow a lot of things. I'm going to give you your computer back because I might want to take that one home with me. I need another one, of course. But thanks, Patrick, and blessings to you. So if you want to, 2 weeks, October 15th, 7 p.m. on the FBC YouTube channel and Brit Gillette's channel. I'm sure he'll be live streaming as well. A prophecy roundtable on technology and AI and that sort of thing. And so after listening to all that, I'm going to talk about the upbeat news from the Middle East, right, where we're on the verge of world war and that type of thing. So this was the less than two. I mean, what's happened in the last 14 days in the Middle East with Israel. And by the way, I sent this message to a few of my friends. At the beginning, I want to give my sincere thanks and gratitude to the IDF for helping me in the preparation of today's update. It was, I'm glad that you guys stepped up and gave me some things to talk about. So, you know, this land of Israel, we know this is central and core to geopolitics in the end times. And it's just, you know, the chess pieces are in place, everything's happened. So let's just recap a little bit about the last couple weeks. Early year, and I've talked about this, but I want to sort of put everything in context. So early this year, Nasrallah gave a speech in February. He's the head of Hezbollah in Lebanon, and he said, been the head of Hezbollah for 30 years, one of the leading terrorists in the world, tight with the Iranian regime, Islamist. He said, guys, stop using your cell phones. They're not safe. They can track you. And by the way, while he was saying this, Hamas was buying cell phone data to track people down around Gaza. I'm sure Hezbollah was buying, or Iran was buying data and giving it to Hezbollah. So they knew everything about how people moved around the area around Gaza, the area around northern Israel, and elsewhere in Israel. I mean, as we just said with Patrick, data is king. So Israel, they said they've switched to pagers, which are, 20-year ago technology at best. They're one-way communication. You get a message, you really can't send a message on most pagers. And Israel intercepted I don't know how they did it. They got the pagers, replaced, it appears, one of the batteries with 20 grams of explosives. And a week ago, Wednesday, I guess, about a week ago Tuesday, they started exploding. Thousands of pagers exploded, not simultaneously, they exploded them individually. Thousands of people were hurt. Hundreds of the terrorists, and they were all Hezbollah terrorists, or closely associated with Hezbollah. There were some collateral, there were some children that picked up their daddy's pager or something, but he was a terrorist. And he had that pager because he was a terrorist. And they looked at the pagers, it exploded, and hundreds of them were blinded. In speeches over the last year leading up to that, Nasrallah had praised the operations of Hezbollah, that they had blinded Israel in their technology. This was, as one Jewish person I heard said, this is another Purim reversal. Purim is the celebration in Israel where they celebrate what happened in the book of Esther. And remember, the end of the book of Esther is Haman was hanged on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai, the Jewish uncle of Queen Esther. And so they're saying, so Nasrallah says, you're going to blind us? We're blinding you? It was reversed right back on him. And then they said, okay, we're not going to use the pagers. Those aren't safe. And by the way, I've sent pictures of these things exploding in the guy's pocket in the grocery store. It doesn't even bruise the apple in the bin, in the vegetable section. And people standing 2 feet away were not hurt. But the terrorist was blind, in some cases blinded, had their hands blown off. They pick it up, their hands are blown off. And you need to understand the mindset of the Middle East. This is, I think, Carolyn Glick and others Benjamin Netanyahu says, we're fighting Amalek. Go read about Amalek in the Bible and what Israel faced. And this is what they're facing. And so it sounds cruel, but some of the security people I saw sort of made the comment, you want to be a martyr, and we're willing to help you achieve that through the IDF, but now you're not going to be a martyr. You're blind, you have no hands, you'll never be able to kill yourself, you'll never be able to go into battle, and you will live the rest of your life knowing that you are a burden on your family and never have the chance to glorious martyrdom. But this is how you have to fight in the Middle East. And by the way, what do you think is going to happen when Jesus comes back and defeats the armies of the earth? Do you think this is going to mean blood flowing as high as the horses' bridles for how many furlongs? It's about 185 miles. That's justice. That's God's justice. And so in the context of that, the governments of the world are given the ability to bear the sword. And sometimes you have to do this. This is the way you have to act. So 4,000 injured. This was I thought, a good Nasrallah going in for a counseling session. So then they went from pagers to walkie-talkies. They're at the funeral the next day, and the walkie-talkies and other communication devices start exploding. And I think even more were killed in those explosions. Again, an amazing, how did they do this? And it was the most technologically sophisticated military special operation, my view, human history. Just to give you some ideas how I think about this. So then they said, okay, well, we can't have the communication devices. We'll have to meet in person. So they have a big meeting of the Al-Radwan Brigade in Beirut, in the basement parking garage of a building. The top guy, like number 2 in Hezbollah, the head of the Al-Radwan Brigade, bunch of other leaders, some of the Iranian guys were there, have a person meeting, and what happens? Boom. Israel takes down the building. And by the way, they didn't really take any of the buildings down around it. They took down the building they needed to take down. The pager attack, the walkie-talkies, was really the most, as some people said, and I think I agree with this, one of the most moral military operations in history, because they only went after the people that were the enemy. They didn't take down a whole city blocks or anything like that. They went after these guys. So Nasrallah, he gives a speech a week ago, Thursday, and he says in the speech, and everybody, they're all sitting around in Lebanon and the Middle East watching it. I watched it. He said, the day of reckoning is coming for Israel. And we'll see what happens. So last week at the UN, they talked, Israel was the subject. Everybody was on a screed against Israel. And here is King Abdullah of Jordan, what he had to say.
I grew up a soldier in a region that is all too familiar with conflict. But there is nothing familiar about this war and the violence unleashed since October 7th. In the absence of global accountability, repeated horrors are normalized, threatening to create a future where anything is permitted, anywhere in the world. Is that what we want? Now is the time to ensure the protection of the Palestinian people. It is the moral duty of this international community to establish a protection mechanism for them across the occupied territories. This will guarantee the safety of Palestinians and Israelis from extremists who are taking our region to the brink of an all-out war. That includes those who continue to propagate the idea of Jordan as an alternative homeland. So let me be very, very clear. That will never happen. We will never accept the forced displacement of Palestinians, which is a war crime.
By the way, his wife is Palestinian, and if you go to Jordan, you will find refugee camps that have been there since the late 1940s. He is a man that I view as one of the biggest hypocrites on the planet. And he will not accept Palestinians. In fact, his father, King Hussein, drove the Palestinians out, killed thousands of them in the famous Black September incident that led the Palestinians to form the Black September movement. We remember that. We remember what happened at the Olympics in Munich in 1972 when Israeli athletes were kidnapped and then slaughtered, hijacked planes. One plane was hijacked in 1976, and on July 4th, 1976, while we're celebrating our 200th anniversary, Yoni Netanyahu, the president of the brother of the current prime minister of Israel, was the field commander for a raid on Entebbe Airport in Uganda to rescue hostages. Yoni Netanyahu was the only IDF soldier killed in that operation. It was the miracle of Entebbe. I mean, watch some of there's some great movies made about it. But that incident was very formative in Benjamin Netanyahu's life, his family's life. And so he talks about the occupied territories. By the way, if you go back and dig into the map, so this red map, that's the mountains of Israel. That's the biblical heartland of Israel. That's where Hebron is. That's where Mamre is. That's where Jerusalem is. That's where Shiloh is. That's where Shechem, that's where Samaria is. So much of the Bible took place there. Now it's largely a red area, inaccessible to the citizens of Israel because it's not safe. By the way, that territory was never a state of Palestine. And from shortly after Israel's War of Independence until 1967, that territory was occupied by another government. The Hashemite kingdom of Jordan occupied the land. Does King Abdullah II ever bring that up in any of his little rants that he does all the time? When he touts himself as the protector of the Christian and Muslim holy sites in Jerusalem, never mentions Jewish holy sites. It's just stunning to me. So Benjamin Netanyahu, a couple days later, he gets up to give a speech. This is what happened. As he got up to speech, there was another exodus. So an Israeli prime minister is speaking at the UN, and there's an exodus in front of him. It's kind of biblical in the way that it happened. Here's a little bit about because I want you to see what Benjamin Netanyahu said. This was Friday at the UN, just a couple days ago, and he spoke in biblical terms. A lot of people didn't know that, but listen to what he said. So this is Friday. Friday evening starts Shabbat, and I'll talk about that in a minute.
Ladies and gentlemen, as Israel defends itself against Iran in the Seven Front War, the line separating the blessing and the curse could not be more clear. This is the map I presented here last year. It's a map of a blessing. It shows Israel and its Arab partners forming a land bridge connecting Asia and Europe between the Indian Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea. Across this bridge, we will lay rail lines, energy pipelines, fiber optic cables, and this will serve the betterment of 2 billion people. Now look at this second map. It's a map. Look at the second map. It's a map of a curse. It's a map of an arc of terror that Iran has created and imposed from the Indian Ocean to the Mediterranean. Iran's malignant arc has shut down international waterways. It cuts off trade. It destroys millions, destroys nations from within, and inflicts misery on millions. On the one hand, a bright blessing, a future of hope. On the other hand, a dark future of despair. And if you think this dark map is only a curse for Israel, if you think that, then you should think again. Because Iran's aggression, if it's not checked, will endanger every single country in the Middle East and many, many countries in the rest of the world. Because Iran seeks to impose its radicalism well beyond the Middle East. That's why it funds terror networks on 5 continents. That's why it builds ballistic missiles for nuclear warheads to threaten the entire world. For too long, the world has appeased Iran. It turns a blind eye to its internal repression. It turns a blind eye to its external aggression. Well, that appeasement must end. And that appeasement must end now.
Well, he goes on and he talks about you people and the nations have to choose between the blessing or the curse. Now, there's a whole lot of Bible prophecy tied up with this, both good and bad. You know, there's always the bad news with Bible prophecy, there's the good news. And so we're seeing these things line up in the Middle East, just like Patrick has talked about in the technocracy part, lining up for sort of this commercial Babylon, religious Babylon that we think is coming. As he was and this is a Wall Street Journal article yesterday talking about the tactics of a political survivor. I mean, Netanyahu is like, you know, the politician with 9 lives. He's very hated in Israel. He's sort of liked by others, and some love him, okay? So he's there now. He's the one in charge. And there's plenty of things to criticize him for, but I will just say from my perspective, they're going after him with lawfare like they're going after Donald Trump. And that says something to me. And there's this strange parallel between what's going on there in the politics and here in the politics. And by the way, on the other end of that, a Donald Trump or a Benjamin Netanyahu as leader, you have a very imperfect human being. That seems to be, they're not the Messiah in any stretch of the imagination. So you can get that, and then by the way, the photograph down below are tanks gathering in the north of Israel. IDF reserves have been called up. It is Netanyahu's, and this is, you need to understand the timing of this. Nasrallah, a day of reckoning is coming for you people. As Benjamin Netanyahu finishes his speech, the IDF engaged in this operation in Lebanon, a targeted strike with giant bunker buster bombs. There was a meeting. They apparently had a mole, said, hey, Nasrallah, other leaders of Hezbollah and Iranian Revolutionary Guard, people high up in the ranks are meeting in these apartments in Beirut, and they took down about 5 buildings. Then it came out, oh, Nasrallah's fine, nothing to worry about, he's okay. And then some of the open source intelligence people started saying, oh, wait a minute, the Iranian website that said that he's okay, they took that post down. So you have to watch, this is what intelligence people do. They look at what they've said and then what they've removed. So it's removed that he's okay. Then somebody put up this video of the site where the bombs hit. And you saw the multi-story apartment buildings that were there before. These were some kind of they took them down. And the IDF people said, there's no way if he was there, he survived it. And then it came out, he's gone, he's died, he's whatever you want to call it. He's having a very fine day because he's now very fine particles. I saw a video of someone preparing a body for burial. They said this was Nasrallah. I doubt that video is true because I don't think there's much left. And then Hezbollah came out and said that he was gone. So but look at how the New York Times treated it. He's like, here he is, he's Israel bombs dwellings. So because Israel's bad, right? And this guy has killed hundreds and thousands of men, including Syrian Arabs, Lebanese Arabs, Sunni Arabs, because he's Shiite. He was a terrorist. He was people get mad at me when I say this. He was a monster. I mean, if you want the definition of it, Nasrallah was the guy. Charismatic among the people. Here's Arab news from Saudi Arabia, and they got him. And so here's, this is a news anchor at Al-Manar TV. She's announcing Nasrallah's death. And you can see it's very emotional for her because to them he was like their savior, a messianic type figure. She's upset. Here was another interview that took place also on Arabic television. I think this might have been Al Jazeera. Look at how this lady reacts to the news.
Marwa, so sorry to interrupt. We do now have official confirmation from the Hezbollah group of the death of Hassan Nasrallah. What's your response, please? I'm so sorry. Let's
because they had tied a lot to him. Here's a drawing that somebody made up of Nasrallah. This also circulated. Remember, there's a memorial page at the Al-Manar website for all terrorists. So somebody did the work to put that together. And remember, all of those memorial pages have this phrase, on the road to Jerusalem, he was martyred. And so his isn't up yet. This was one that somebody made up. Pretty good job, by the way. And with the number of people killed and subsequent attacks that have taken out more Hezbollah and Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps leadership in Beirut, the people who put up these memorial pages are very, very busy. I mean, it's been a stunning this was Friday, and all this has happened. Mahmoud Abbas, of course, came out, oh, I'm so sorry. Here's a graphic that the IDF put about the upper echelon of the leadership of Hezbollah and how they're doing. They've literally gotten all of them. This is a stunning operation. This is the New Yorker today. What is Israel's assassination of Hezbollah's leader means for the Middle East. And here's somebody, so there's obituaries, and you can go to the Washington Post, New York Times. Here's a guy who sort of summarized of them. The New York Times called Nasrallah a revered Shiite Muslim cleric. Sky News, a passionate and fiery orator. The Guardian in the UK was a qualified Islamic scholar who rose from humble beginnings. The AP called him a fiery orator and pragmatist, and the BBC wrote, a leader who turned Hezbollah into a major provider of health, education, and social services. By the way, there's a report, it's on my list of like all these people I want to interview. An attorney in UK in London named Asserson, he wrote a report called the Asserson Report, examining how BBC has talked about Israel. He went through the BBC's ethical guidelines and he found just in a 4-month period, 1,500 times, more than 1,500 times, that the BBC had violated its own ethical guidelines in talking about the Israel-Hamas, Israel-Hezbollah situation. 1,500. The BBC. I mean, I kind of like the BBC because it's kind of like a one-stop shop for bad thinking and that type of thing. So here is Antonio Guterres, the technocratic head of the UN. I'm gravely concerned by the dramatic escalation of events in Beirut in the last 24 hours. This cycle of violence must stop now. Why must it stop now? Because Israel responded. For a year since October 8th, the anniversary will be next week, since the attack on Gaza. The next day, Hezbollah started raining rockets, mortars, drones, and everything on Israel, now up to about 15,000 launched into Israel in the last year. I've not heard this guy utter a peep about what Hezbollah did. And a lot of these right-wing channels are going right along. Oh, look at how bad Israel is. They're committing genocide. And how many did the Kingdom of Jordan kill in the Black September thing? I think it was 18,000. Fellow Arabs. So will Abdullah ever talk about that? I don't know. I don't think his government's going to last that long. Great article at Tablet Magazine by the great Lee Smith I think he's with FDD, Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, and some other think tanks. And he talks about, he says this is, wars are won by killing the enemy above all those who inspire their people to kill yours. That's the way it is. I mean, we don't like that, but this is the world we have until Jesus returns. He also said this, the idea advanced by conspiracy theorists from the U.S. political and media establishment on the left as well as the right that Netanyahu is trying to drag the U.S. into a larger regional war with Iran, a thesis sure to be cited repeatedly in the aftermath of Nasrallah's association, is absurd. I agree with Lee Smith. By the way, don't need the hate mail. I know you don't like it. Go start your own blog if you don't like it. The Obama faction, of which Biden and Harris are a part, that's why I call it the Biden administration, is in Iran's corner. Moreover, only a fool could be blind to the fact that the Pentagon way of war, 3 decades into the 21st century and a world away from the United States' last conclusive victory, means death for all who pursue it. If Washington and the Europeans are appalled by Israel's campaign over the last 2 weeks, it's because the Israelis have resurfaced the ugly truth that no modish theories of war, international organizations, or even American presidents could long obscure. Wars are won by killing the enemy above all those who inspire their people to kill yours. Killing Nasrallah not only anchors Israel's victory in Lebanon, but reestablishes the old paradigm for any Western leaders who take seriously their duty to protect their countrymen and civilization. Kill your enemies. We don't like that as Christians, but this is the way it's going to be until the millennium. I use the definition of the millennium that somebody sent me recently. The millennium is that period of time set aside by God for Christians to argue about the proper interpretation of the book of Revelation. And so here is the Elon Musk tweeting about this. Now, he's been, Elon does stuff I like, he does stuff I don't like. Sometimes I look at Elon and I think, as soon as he's done with this interview, he's calling his people at SpaceX and says, when's my Mars rocket ready so I can get out of here? That's just the impression that I get sometimes. So Khamenei tweeted this, Hezbollah is the victor. And Elon said, that's now in our Community Note Hall of Fame, where readers add context to what somebody has tweeted, like Khamenei. And I tweeted, this one's not aging well. This is a niece of the daughter of Qasem Soleimani, saying, my uncle, this is 4 years ago after her father was taken out by a missile by the U.S. Near the Baghdad airport. My uncle Nasrallah, the leader of the resistance, will avenge my father. The whole world knows this. By the way, what's surfaced again, and you need to understand, there's reports that there are Iranian assassination squads in the United States with the ability to fire shoulder surface-to-air missiles to take down Trump's plane. My understanding is Trump has grounded his plane. They've increased Secret Service protection around him. But remember, it was after Soleimani was taken out in January 2020 that on Khamenei's website, the leader of Iran, they had a video of an assassination attempt on Donald Trump on a golf course. By the way, as best as I can tell, It was the same golf course where the assassination attempt happened recently, and it was the same hole on the golf course. That was what was in the video that was on the Iranian Ayatollah Supreme Leader's website. So what's happened since this happened with Nasrallah? I'm trying to get done, folks, but you can appreciate this. That's pretty important. I'm going to kind of truncate. I have one clip I want to play you because everybody talks about Israel's had a great victory. I don't agree with that. Look at what's happened. These are from my Red Alert app. It's called Zofar, like shofar, that they sound it like, well, see what's happening this week is the Feast of Trumpets, where they sound the shofar. And so this is a shofar. And so this was the other day. This is just one attack sequence that comes from rockets from Hezbollah into Israel. You see Haifa there, Nahariya, Pam and I've been up there. We were all along the Lebanon border one time on a half tank of gas too, Pam. I just want to point that out. And she's like, kidding me, you need to get gas. And I'm like, I'll get gas. I know this car. And usually I'm right. Not always, but just most of the time. So that was one. Then it was followed shortly after that by another attack up in the same region. And so what they're doing, then there was another attack. It looked like this, then it looked like this a little bit up close. Then yesterday, while I was at the conference, this was another attack. That's Haifa down there. But now they're getting down to Tel Aviv, Central Galilee, Northern Galilee, and people are leaving. This is down around Tel Aviv, Ben Gurion Airport. You can see the Dead Sea there on the right in Jerusalem. It's very difficult on the economy. And they're trying to get, and then they have the Houthis sending missiles in. There was another one came in last night, and I was talking to a friend, and he says, man, the people are freaking out with these missile attacks. They're like, fire's coming into my house. I mean, literally, he had a friend calling him at the time. This missile got shot down or blew up or came in, and there's fire in my house and my yard's on fire up in this, not too far from Jerusalem. And so remember, this was the goal stated on a poster at Palestinian Square in Tehran a few months ago. Are you guys ready? You have 100,000, 80, 60, 80, 100,000 people that are now internal refugees in Israel. Are you ready for 2 million? That's what this poster says. And by the way, the rockets and the writing is in Hebrew, in Tehran. Why? They're trying to send a message. They know that Israel will see this and read this. So I'm going to play, this is about a 7-minute clip, and then I'll have a few more comments. This is Miri Eisen. She's with the Center on Counterterrorism at one of the universities there, former IDF. And she's talking about, okay, what's the takeaway from this attack on Nasrallah? And taking out Nasrallah and decapitating should we celebrate having a great victory? And she's like, we should, well, listen to what she says.
Point number one. Over the last 20 years, as I have been both within the intelligence community and outside, there's a theoretical military term that developed from being C3, which at the time was command, control, and communications. It evolved into C4, command, control, communications, and computer in general. And then they turned it into C4I, command, control, communications, computers, and intelligence. And I'd like to add a C. I think that what Israel did is that the C4I, communication, control, command, computers, and intelligence of Hezbollah has been turned in the last 10 days into chaos. And I say that as a first point because what Israel targeted over this isn't in the last week, this is pretty much, I would say, even from the elimination of Fuad Shukur as the chief of staff, that what Israel has been targeting is command, control, communications, and in that creating chaos. And as I said, in the C4I, using intelligence, targeting, by the way, also Hezbollah intelligence. And I really do think that in that sense, it's not checkmate, but it has been a very effective type of attack, and it is not something that was invented in the last 10 days. This is not about eliminating Hezbollah. When you take out the top man, and I'll talk about Hassan Nasrallah himself in a moment, you absolutely have just taken out decision-making, command, control, the ones I talked about before. But what Israel has done is they've cut into all of the different levels of command, control, communications, and the top man. This does not eliminate Hezbollah. Same challenge that we had with Hamas, but here the focus I want to put on, which is about the military and looking forward, is that Hezbollah's arsenals are 10 times what Hamas ever had. Hezbollah still has the backing in that open road from the Islamic regime of Iran. They're going to send in airplanes. Maybe they won't be able to land right now in Beirut. Don't worry. They'll be able to land in Damascus International, and from there be trucked in. They can be trucked from Iran through Iraq, through Syria, meaning that that arsenal is going to be given back, and Israel has not in any way destroyed the arsenal that Hezbollah has built from 2006. We're in 2024. And so this isn't about eliminating, it's not a knockout, this isn't, the end of the game, and Hezbollah was in it for the long term. In the immediate sense, and this is my third point, it's not elimination, but also that Israel still has, specifically militarily, additional immediate threats that are continually being taken care of, still with Hassan Nasrallah not around. And I would say that the biggest focus for me as a person looking at this as somebody from the outside inside is the arsenal and the weapons themselves, but the capabilities that Hezbollah built adjacent along Israel's northern border on the Lebanese side in all of the towns and villages. And what they built is the Radwan force that is deployed down there. And that force, no matter how many times we attack, you cannot destroy that from the air, both because it is underground, just like Hassan Nasrallah was. And look at what we had to do to be able to take out Hassan Nasrallah. And you're always going to have that debate. But both the Islamic regime of Iran and Syria under Bashar al-Assad, like the North Koreans, or for that matter, years ago, other terror organizations, they go underground. And to be able to get to that subterranean arena in southern Lebanon, which is 2 to 3 kilometers from Israel's border, you have to go in. I made until now just the 3 points. One, my little playing on the C4 and intelligence into chaos. 2 is that we're not eliminating now, we're degrading, and they still have a lot of capabilities. And out of that 3, that main immediate threat is the Radwan force deployed and action targeted, meaning now they have, not that they didn't want to do it before, but now they're going to even more want to do an action. And I want to be clear, they have capabilities. Look at what Hamas did on October 7th, and Radwan forces were training to do much more than that in the years before 2023, which means attacking. So you go, the communities are empty, but they're not totally empty. There are the local forces there that are taking care of the community itself. And Hezbollah is the one that in July of 2006 kidnapped Israeli soldiers, and that is most definitely a clear and present danger. If Israel, I don't want to say when, if Israel, the IDF, chooses to go in to take care of that immediate threat, that changes the arena, because that would enable a clearer voice from anybody to be able to say that the Israelis who live up north, the 70,000 who are officially dislocated, and the additional thousands of those who have moved would be able, again, not easily, but would be able to move back home.
If you want to see the whole interview, it's only like 25 minutes. It's at, the Jewish Press Club YouTube channel. Just put up this morning, so go to YouTube, type in Jewish Press Club in the search, click on the channel. When it comes up, then go and click on videos, and you'll get the most recent video, which I'm sure is Mary Eisen. You need to listen to it. She's a very good, clear voice on the threat that Israel faces. She's studied this for a long time, just like Sarit Zahavi and the people at Alma Research are studying it also. but they've planned this for years. But listen, Israel's planned the response for years. We've seen the response. And I see all these Jew-hating right-wingers out there. Oh, Israel's completely done everything that they're capable of doing, and now they're going to get destroyed. Do you think Israel's not planning something else? How stupid do you have to be to think that? And this has been an amazing military operation, I think unmatched on a level like this with intelligence and everything. And it's sort of like body blow, haymaker, 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 boom. But they're not done. As she says, Hezbollah, if they've all the stuff they've done and they haven't replenished and everything, they still have 90% of the rockets, mortars, missiles, and everything that they had when October 8th started a year ago. It's a big problem. The tunnels are underground. I saw an interview with someone. He said, I went up there and they took me down in an unused Hezbollah tunnel. It was 300 feet underground. There's no bunker buster on the planet that's going to take out a 300-foot deep tunnel. He said it had dormitories, beds, all kinds of things in it. And so, now I want you to listen to a little bit. This is the Jordanian foreign minister at the UN after Netanyahu's speech, because it's having an impact. But I want you to see if you can pick up two things in his little talk at this press conference that don't really, are you really thinking this through? Or are you so blinded that you can't see the forest for the trees? So just listen to this. I think you might catch them.
Danger in the region is the policies of this government of Israel, are the actions of this government of Israel, and the failure of the international community to stop it and say enough, protect international law, protect our international system, and protect the lives of Palestinians who have been reduced to nothing. I mean, yesterday, the day before in Lebanon, over 500 people were killed in one day, as if nothing has happened.
Can I ask a question here at the microphone?
Now we're in a zone of real danger. Anything can go wrong. Netanyahu obviously wants regional war, and that's what been warning against. So when you go into Lebanon, and look, what's going to happen in Lebanon now? If this war continue, the people are leaving their homes. If there's a land invasion into Lebanon, the Lebanese army will have to defend this country. And then what are we going to be looking at? So we are looking at the eye of real danger right now. This has to stop. And if now the international community does not see the gravity of the danger, then we'll be here probably in 2 months and telling you, things have really gotten worse. The Prime Minister came here today and said that Israel is surrounded by those who want to destroy it, an enemy. We're here, members of a Muslim Arab committee mandated by 57 Arab and Muslim countries. And I can tell you here, very unequivocally, all of us are willing to, right now, guarantee the security of Israel in the context of Israel ending the occupation and allowing for the emergence of a Palestinian state, independent state along the
Okay, so what did you hear? 57 Muslim countries, one Jewish state is the problem. Our people are being displaced in southern Lebanon. Did he mention the 150,000 internal refugees within the nation of Israel? No, because he doesn't care. He's a Muslim Jew hater. That's the fact, Jack. And he serves the king who claims to protect the Muslim and Christian holy sites in Jerusalem. I get a little bit exercised about this. By the way, I'm self-censoring all the time up here. Not saying what I know it doesn't sound like it, but so I saw this graphic at the Financial Times the other day, and I thought it was on something else, but this is kind of like the perfect picture of the two-state solution. Everybody's trying to put the puzzle pieces together the wrong way, right? They don't fit. So displaced people, 57 countries, one Jewish state. That was the takeaway from that. And then what did he say? We need a two-state solution. But don't you send those Palestinians over to Jordan. We don't want them, because they know. Mohammed bin Salman has come out and said, I don't care about the Palestinian issue. He said that. And then they have banned in Saudi Arabia mentioning the Palestinians in mosque and prayers, including in Mecca and Medina. There's something going on. This is my friend. Again, this is the tomb of Machpelah. My friend Malka Fleischer, a spectacular Jewish lady, Orthodox, been in her home. You know, when you're a kid and you have a mother and you say, you think, did she go to law school or something? You ever hear a kid say something like, well, Malka went to law school. So her kids, when they say it, it's like, yeah, she really went to law school. But so she's Zionist. They were in Gaza when they got kicked out. They live in a fraud. I've been in their home. Wonderful people. And so here's a tweet or a little video she put up, just 47 seconds or so. Her husband's very closely tied to the tomb of Machpelah in the Jewish community of Hebron, the second holiest site to Israel. At this conference with all these pro-Israel people, I think Pam and I were the only one who's ever been there. Why? It's in Judea. It's in the biblical heartland. And most of that, you're not allowed to go there if you're a Jew or an Israeli. I doubt that she's ever been, but I listen to the end of what she says. I think this is interesting. Oops.
Hey guys, this is Malka in Judea. One of my friends just let me know that his son just minutes ago was called up along with thousands of other IDF soldiers to head north to the border with Lebanon. I don't know what's going on up there, but it's something big. And you know, this has been such a year in Israel. And here we are facing Rosh Hashanah, the new year, and we're all trying to do teshuvah, which means return in Hebrew. And it really feels like this is the first time in a long time, maybe the best time for sure in a long time, that we really have the chance to do teshuvah on the personal level and even on the national level, like the historic level. And I really pray that Hashem will give us the strength and the courage and the vision and the success to get to the places we've always dreamed we could go.
Now, knowing her a little bit, she meant that in two ways. Her husband's a rabbi. She meant that in a spiritual sense, but I have no doubt in my mind she meant that in a physical sense. We want to go places we want to go. We want to go to Shiloh. We want to go to Shechem. We want to go to Mamre. This is our heritage. The whole Bible is based on this place which we're excluded from. In Ezekiel chapter 35, it talks about a people who will occupy in the end times the mountains of Israel and saying, we possess your possessions. They're haughty and proud, and God's going to judge them. And when the judgment comes on them, it's going to be severe. Are there people that occupy the mountains of Israel today that are haughty and proud and saying, this is our possession, and you Jews get out? Yes, this is Ezekiel 35 playing out right in front of your eyes, my friends. Of this, I have no doubt. No doubt at all. It's part of the acceleration, the convergence, the logistics, and all this other stuff. And I think we're beginning to understand this. So when I was in the Fleischer's home a year and a half ago for Shabbat, they have a Torah portion. I saw somebody checking their watch. I'm going to be done here shortly. And I forgive you. But they have a Torah portion. There's a weekly Torah portion that they read at Shabbat. The Shabbat I was there, it was David being sold into slavery by his brothers in Genesis. And very interesting. Joseph being sold into slavery. I'm sorry. Got the wrong messianic figure there, type of the Messiah. Can I ask you what you heard what Benjamin Netanyahu said at the UN? What's the Torah portion this week? It was just read in Jewish homes at Shabbat the other night. You can go to, there's many websites that have them. Part of it was Deuteronomy chapter 30. Let me read it now. It shall come to pass when all these things come upon you, the blessing and the curse which I have set before you. This is Moses speaking to Israel as they're getting ready to enter the promised land. And you call them to mind among all the nations where the Lord your God drives you, and you return to the Lord your God and obey his voice according to all that I command you today, you and your children, with all your heart and with all your soul, that the Lord your God will bring you back from captivity and have compassion on you and gather you again from all the nations where the Lord your God has scattered you. If any of you are driven out to the farthest parts under heaven, from there the Lord your God will gather you, and from there he will bring you. Then the Lord your God will bring you to the land which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. He will prosper you and multiply you more than your fathers. And the Lord your God will circumcise your heart and the heart of all your descendants, to love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul, so that you may live. Folks, go home, read Deuteronomy, and then read Romans 9 through 11 and fit them together, because they go together. This is what we are seeing. Listen, everybody says, oh, those Jews, they don't believe in Jesus. They're fake Jews. There's this fake Israel. Baloney. By the way, there's all these warnings in Scripture, are there not, about deception in the end times. Guess what there's not a warning about? A fake Israel. Because it's not fake. Now listen, this is a work in process thing. By the way, I'm a work in process, and I know all of you, you're all work in process too. You understand how this works. This is a process thing. This is how prophecy plays out. It's kind of messy. It's kind of unclear. But as you get closer to the end, you have a better understanding. And I think we're at that time. But look at what it says in Deuteronomy 37. Also, the Lord your God will put all these curses on your enemies and on those who hate you, who persecuted you. Romans talks about a partial hardening. So we need to okay, yeah, they're not there yet. We're not there yet, if we're honest about it. You've heard Jacob here, and he said, more Jews come to faith in Messiah in the last 50 years than in the prior 1900. It's happening. It's changing in front of our eyes. Even the New York Times says it's been a process thing. They raided a thing in Syria. It came. There's this border agreement. Amos Hochstein forced them to give away gas, and they said, if we give away gas, Nasrallah is threatening to bomb these oil facilities of Israel out in the Mediterranean, sent drones out there, threatened them. So what did Amos Hochstein from the Biden administration runs over and says, let's get this thing. So Yair Lapid, he signs this agreement to give away part of Israel's gas resources. So guess what happened, though? You want to talk about blessing and curse? So Lebanon hires drilling companies to go out there to get the gas resources so they have money. Lebanon is not really even, it's not functioning. The power companies are out. They don't have fuel, everything. And now we got the gas oil thing. Guess what? They've gone out and drilled. All they get is oil, they get sand and water. Do you think this is part of the blessing and the curse? Of this, I have no doubt. This is what's going on. God, Hashem, is intervening in human history in ways that I don't think we're really fully understanding yet. I pray that we will be part of that Daniel 12 thing. The wise will understand. That's what I hope for this church and everyone else. So I have to say this. Do you remember Jared Kushner? So he tweeted Friday evening, right at Shabbat, now that I think about it. The blessing and the curse thing. He's an Orthodox Jew. He was behind the Abraham Accords. And I'm not a big fan of the Abraham Accords. So this is the last thing I say. I'm getting the bring it in for a landing signal back there in the back row. Thank you so much. The philosopher Bernard Henry Levy wrote on X, I keep reading everywhere that Lebanon is on the brink of collapse. No, Kushner says. It is on the brink of relief and deliverance. Moments like this come once in a generation, if they even come at all. The Middle East is too often a solid where little changes. Today it is a liquid, and the ability to reshape is unlimited. Do not squander this moment. Now, this is, so much of this stuff is biblical, but concerning biblical too. You understand, here's a man who's saying what he was doing when he was in the Trump administration was trying to reshape the Middle East in the end times. We have to figure out how this all plays out. Pay attention to what's going on. I have a lot more, and look at Psalm 83, and he's talking about this area that's in Psalm 83 and reshaping it into something else. And it's concerning to me. And we need to be honest about it and talk about it. So let's pray, and we'll resume this. So remember J.B. Hickson here on October 8th, Tuesday night. It'll be live streamed and also here at 7 o'clock. So let's pray. Lord, we just pray to you. We come to you and ask you, Lord, that you will give us wisdom and understanding at this time so that we can understand the times in which we live and use that to instruct many, to mainly inform them of the soon coming of Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah. We pray, Lord, that you will give us opportunities to share this message with those around us. Bless us this week in Jesus' name. Amen.